we've got to get down there. The shop's been broken into. And he's like, what do you mean it's been broken into? Have you got any more information? I was like, I don't. Let's just get there.
Cool. Welcome back to another episode of D2C Diaries. Before we get started today, one thing we always forget to do, please make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. Get on YouTube if you're on Spotify so you can see the beautiful faces in the room right now. And make sure you like, comment and subscribe, as I just said. But today we've got a really exciting founder on the podcast, Sam, founder of Batch London. Really excited to have you here today and get into some stuff about your journey and the brand up until this point.
Very excited to be here. Thanks. Feel like you've done that a few times before.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of a pre-made script at this stage.
Been memorising it all night.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think Batch London, obviously, you guys are London-based fashion brand specialising in high-quality, made-to-order suits. Something we, a niche within D2C that we haven't really touched on the podcast before. So I'm really excited to get into some stuff there and how you approach that strategy for scaling the brand.
We've not had that many fashion brands on.
No, we haven't.
No.
Who have we had on?
We've had someone from Slow Jeans, which like a couple of episodes ago, which actually hasn't gone out yet, who's actually just starting like a made-to-order, fully custom denim brand.
Yeah, they're relaunching.
Yeah. He was interesting. But yeah, you've not had. I don't think we've had anyone else on really. And it's one of those niches where I look at it and I'm like, fuck, it's hard, right?
Yeah, and I bet it's even harder, the made-to-order part as well. But we can.
Complex.
We can definitely get into that. I think what would be good just to go back to the start, really, yourself when you were younger, before you even started the brand. What were you like as a person? And I guess what was the inspiration to start Batch London?
How far back do you want to go? Coming out the womb?
Yes.
No, I guess I sort of, education-wise, is always a bit of a class clown. Like, report cards will always be like, has loads of natural ability but doesn't know how to fucking use it. And so that was like a repetitive theme, and it was never my fault. It was always the teacher's fault. But in reality, there was only one common denominator, and that was me. And then growing up was in the sort of maths, physics, that sort of side of the brain type subjects. Since I was 12, I thought I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. Went to university, started studying mechanical engineering, hated it. After a term, switched to economics and management, which is about the driest subject you could possibly do. But I actually really enjoyed it. But in my time at uni, sort of this is leading into career and business journey, started a small events company, running a night, like a night DJ student night at uni with a friend of mine, and realised fairly quickly that like I like that. I like the idea of running my own business and starting it. And it was kind of born out of frustration. I was working as a promoter for another brand, and because I ended up doing 4 years, after 3 years, they're like, oh, well, all of your mates are leaving, so who are you going to be bringing down? But in reality, none of my mates were coming anyway. I'd built a network of other people over the time that I was bringing down. So I was really pissed off that they let me go. And that sort of inspired this hatred-driven, like, well, if you can let me go, I'm going to go and do it better.
Yeah.
And then we ended up doing relatively well with it. Nothing like to really shout from the rafters about, but well enough to then sell it back to the same people that dropped me in the first place for peanuts. It was like 1,500 quid we sold it back to them for. But it was still like, okay, cool. I like this process of starting something, growing it, and then eventually exiting it, which I think is most startup founders' goals, is to cash in at some point. And so from there, I was like, okay, well, I don't want to be an engineer, don't want to be an economist, but I quite like startups. Maybe I'll go and try and do project management, where you do loads of different things and you're sort of pulling it all together. But that was an industry where you're chasing your tail because you can't get a job without experience, and you can't get experience without a job. So unless you've done a project management degree, you're kind of scuppered. So was like trying to work out how I'd get out into the big wide world post-university and go and find a project management job and just beg someone to take me on board and take a punt. At the same time, a friend of mine's boyfriend was launching this drinks brand called Punchy. I was just leaving uni. He was like, look, we need some part-time sales help at festivals over the summer. It's like, okay, cool, sounds great. Went to Taste of London as the first festival and loved it, and then decided to go on full-time. Loved it so much that I worked for 7 months for free because they didn't have the money to pay me. And it's sort of that was the transition into startup world, really.
So
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that
It's
piece
really well articulated, actually.
Yeah, that like chip on the shoulder piece, I think, is like something you see a lot in those early stages, and it's such a big motivator and driver, isn't it, to then push forward and prove those people wrong.
Yeah, love and hate are two pretty strong drivers to go and get you to do something, whatever it is. But yeah, for the initial one was hate, I guess. Distaste.
I can feel it.
Yeah.
So what was then the transition into, the brand itself? How did you then, look at starting the brand? Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, so I've been at Punchy for 5 years at this point, and I joined as they launched, so really, really early days, and kind of saw the ins and outs of what starting a business is like, what goes into it. Little things like, how do you do a cash flow? When do you register for VAT? The basic business skills that you don't get taught, that you have to learn, that more often than not stop a good idea from becoming a reality, because there's such an steep upwards learning curve, and particularly at a point in time where ChatGPT hadn't really come to fruition, and you can just like go and type into an AI tool, like, how do I start something, and it will help you, which I think's probably get onto that, but it's changed the landscape of entrepreneurship quite significantly. But I'd been there for 5 years, finished up as head of ops. I'd probably learned everything that I could learn at that point in time in that business before it got into retail and supermarkets, or had a big international expansion. Those probably would have been the two next steep learning curves.
Yeah.
And so I was able to do my job quite efficiently and kind of ready to start my own thing. I'd been grafting away pretty hard, and I had shares in the business, but it didn't really feel like I was building back into my own pocket in the same way that I wanted to. That sort of sentiment combined with this want for a casual suit, pretty simple. I wanted a casual suit, couldn't find any good ones. Started rolling around with the idea a little bit in my head and thinking, like, is there a market for this? Do other people want this? Sat at, I don't know, family barbecues being like, does anyone want a casual suit sort of vibes, and getting pretty good response from it. And so it was time to start my own thing in my head. Had an idea to go and flesh out in a bit more detail. Brought my co-founder Julian on board at this point, and then we started doing the research and looked into the market. This was 2021 that we registered the business, so we're just coming out of COVID, was like semi still in it, and the workplace had casualised. We'd moved to this very hybrid / out of office or remote environment where you didn't really need to come and dress up smartly anymore. People weren't wearing suits to work. You're going in and out of the office, and so there's a need to be able to have something that transitioned from those days that you're in the office in London or whatever, from something that's formal that would pull you through a sales meeting, to then being able to go out and see your mates at the pub afterwards and not feel like a prick overdressed in a suit in the pub, which we've all done before, or if not seen before.
Yeah.
And so I'd realised that there was a strong market for it, and that was sort of the initial starting point.
Could you quickly touch on that piece with like meeting or were you friends before, yourself and Julian?
Yeah.
Yeah. So because I think one mistake that you see a lot of co-founders do when you're starting a business with someone else is they start the business with maybe the wrong person who has too similar skill set to them, and as a result, there's a clash there, and they're not complementing each other's skills. So was that like an intentional thought process as to like how you would, your responsibilities, what you're both best at? What did that look like?
It's an interesting one, because it's always my first bit of advice to anyone that comes and asks for advice about starting a business, is to get a co-founder, because your longevity of that business is so much stronger if you've got people that can pick up the slack. Like, it's impossible to run at 110% all the time, and you kind of need to make success of a business, particularly in the early stages. So you can share that responsibility. It's really important. It's someone to share the highs with as well as the lows. It's easier to share the lows with your mum, because you can sort of explain it and they'll understand it, but it's quite hard for them to understand the highs, i.e. like, we just want a new bit of business or whatever it is, which doesn't have the same impact on them. So just have someone to be like, get your head out, let's go for a pint, let's go and celebrate that, and then tomorrow we'll get back in it, because no doubt there's some fire coming around the corner, as you boys will know. But to your point, finding the right co-founder can be really difficult, and having complementary skill sets is obviously really important. Julian and I had met at university. He was at Newcastle as well. And first and foremost, we were just a good cultural fit. We got along. So like, if someone that you want to go for a pint with, I think that is really fundamental, because you'll spend more time with them than you will with your girlfriend, because you're in each other's pockets the whole time. You never really switch off. If you don't get along culturally, then you're going to struggle. And then in terms of opposite skill sets, we've got quite an interesting dynamic, because traditionally you might split it like operations and marketing, or ops and finance and marketing and sales, as I see a lot of the time. For Julian and I, we're both across the whole of the business, pretty much 24/7. We kind of lean a little bit into different responsibilities, but we're both across it all, which has the benefit, if that one of us goes on holiday, you're not then completely stranded and don't know what's going on and can't make a purchase order, or whatever the job is that needs to be done. We split it in terms of the way that we think and operate. So I'm a bit more of a longer term strategical thinker, and he's a much better short term operator in terms of getting things done. So if I didn't have him, I'd come up with all these like good ideas, like this is where we need to get to in 3-5 years time, and this is our roadmap to get there, but it would never happen. And conversely, if he didn't have me, then we'd be getting loads of stuff done on the day to day, but without any vision of like, okay, this is great over the next 6 months, but are we building for the next 3 to 5 years? And like that, we both balance each other out in that as well. But that's generally how we split our thinking. That's how we mesh well together.
It's really interesting. I think that's the most like that setup of like the ideas and the execution is like such a common setup, I think, and like that's almost like the perfect setup from I was reading a thing about Y Combinator, and they have a massive preference to co-founders because they have a higher success rate, and they were talking about like fundamental skill sets of those co-founding pairs, and that was the most common, like one person who's more strategy, big ideas, and one person who's more executional, implementer. That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's worked really well for us so far. And I think like the other like bit of advice that I got that's always good to pass on is, right at that first stage, like whilst you're still mates, set out the contingency plan for what happens if you fall out, because it gets very, very difficult to do that when you fall out and emotions are high, and like it's a difficult conversation to have early doors, but it's like once it's on paper, it almost takes the stress away from it and allows everyone to speak freely and be honest and just say exactly how you're feeling at the point that you're feeling it, without the worry that like this might implode the business. It's like, you know what happens if that happens, and so it's there set in stone. It's kind of a safety net.
Can you give an example of what that contingency plan might look like?
So it's like, if we fall out and one of us wants to leave, what happens to that equity? Do they walk away with all of the equity? If they do that, it's really, really, really hard to keep the business going, because you've got a huge amount of this business capital and equity that's not working for you. So it's plans like, okay, well, is it vested? Do you earn that over a period of time? Or if it's not vested, if we get to the point where this happens, how much of that do you walk away with, and how much of that goes back to the business?
Yeah.
Do you then receive that at a later date? But it's kind of like, you know, I'd rather have 10% of a £100 million business than 50% of a £10 million business. So you have to put those plans in place in case that ever does happen.
Yeah, for sure. It's the classic piece of a slice of a watermelon versus a whole grape.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I'd love to just touch on that, the early stages of like how you followed that MPD process of, you know, actually getting that product in hand initially. Like what did that early stage look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, neither of myself or Julian had any fashion experience coming into it. I'd come from the drinks world. Julian had come, well, it's not quite fashion, but it's not fashion, but it kind of is a little bit. He worked for a company called Oddballs, who make boxers and bobble hats and whatnot. So it's kind of like fast moving consumer good as opposed to fashion necessarily. So we were kind of starting from scratch, but essentially had an idea of what we wanted this thing to look like, and then brought in people that had the skill set to come and help us do it, because there's so many people that have been through fashion college and that have the technical ability but don't have the business nous to go and then make that into something. So the pool of talent is huge to then be able to go and tap into. And we kind of just went stage by stage, got someone to help us design it. I mean, I was surprised going into it at how broken the supply chain is in fashion. Whereas in the drinks world, for example, you go to someone and they'll help you develop the product, they'll make your first batch, they'll help you with the labeling, etc., etc., and you kind of got a one-stop stop to getting at least a first sample. In fashion, you've got a fashion designer who does something different to a pattern cutter, who cuts out all of the pieces that then get stitched together. Then there's another person that grades it, which takes that pattern and turns it into several sizes. Then there's someone else that samples it. And then there's someone else that does the main production. And none of them want to do anyone else's jobs. It's like the similarity between grading and pattern cuttings and like making the first pattern and then making it into lots of sizes is so close that I still can't work out why someone's not gone like, yeah, I can do both of those things. But I guess it's like maybe the lack of technical understanding that actually
specialization, I guess.
It's a proper specialization.
The volume that goes through the fashion industry probably just don't need the work, which must be such a nice position to be in, right? That's so interesting. That's so complex to learn when you're first going through that process.
Yeah, but I think we just potentially got lucky.
Yeah.
Just got put in front of the right people or put ourselves in front of the right people that were there, keen, willing to help, like the idea, and helped us sort of get it off the ground, and probably went through 3 different stages of sampling to get to something that we were happy with. Our very first sample was quite funny. We were calling up this canvas manufacturer. So we wanted to make this like canvas material is what we thought we wanted to begin with. And they sent us a load of swatches, which are like this big. And when you feel a material as a swatch versus what it feels like in a finished garment, it's completely different. And something that you can only really get an understanding of with experience. You can't even really make it up in your head. So they sent us this canvas. And we're like, nah, it's not heavy enough. We need something thicker. So we go back to them and they're like, are you sure? Because this is the thickest we have. Like, from what you're trying to make, I don't think this is what you want. So we're like, okay, fine, we'll just send us the thickest one. We got it made into the garment and it was so thick that it was like a straight jacket. Like, you couldn't move or walk in it. Like, oh shit, okay, fine. So back to the drawing board. But yeah, it just took a while to go through those little stages of getting to right material, right pattern, right product. We're now probably on the 11th iteration of the exact same style.
Nice. Just
with like 1-2% improvements each time.
Nice. Love that. And so you got the product, you're kind of happy with that first I guess version of the product. How kind of intentional were you with that initial acquisition strategy, you know, to get those first customers? What did that look like? And I guess what was that, you know, turning point where you're like, okay, this is a viable business now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for any startup, your first customers tend to be your friends and family, particularly in products, particularly when you're making something to order.
Yeah.
So like we haven't really touched on that yet, but going through the process of setting up the business, having come from fast-moving consumer goods in the drinks world and seeing how much cash gets tied up in stock and how difficult it is to pick up momentum and get a business moving when you haven't got any money to put into sales and marketing and in this horrible cash flow cycle, I wanted to see if I could find a way to get around that. Simultaneously, when you start digging into the fashion industry, quickly apparent what an unsustainable mess it is.
Yeah.
And like we all know fast fashion's bad. It's like it's fairly ingrained that that's a bad thing. But when you start looking at the stats, they're pretty eye-opening, and the one that always rings truest to me is that 6 in 10 items of clothing that are made end up in landfill within a year.
Wow.
So when you start to process that, like it's pretty bonkers. Basically buying 4 items of clothing, there's another 6 that will be in landfill within a year.
Yeah, and yeah, we've seen behind the curtain of quite a lot of D2C fashion brands, and like a lot of them live and die by the stock turnover, right? Because that's just like cash sat in a warehouse, and it always blows my mind how hard it is, because like you are only 2 bad drops away from like pretty much being out of business. Like you have to nail, and that's what I think like obviously represent. Like you look at them and they nailed so many drops in a row, built that core line out, and that's like so good at products for the customer.
Yeah.
But they're a good case, but there's so many examples I've seen where they've just got all of these like products that they've over leveraged in stock and just can't liquidate at the right margin.
Big time.
And they're just completely cooked.
I mean, I'd love to see the stats on how many failed fashion brands there are. But I think it would
got to be one of the hardest.
Fairly eye-watering.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the problem because of the way that the business and the model, the fashion industry operates at the moment. One, it's not sustainable for the planet because there's a shed load of waste that gets produced. by people releasing too many styles, overproducing stuff. To your point, if you get a drop wrong and it doesn't sell, the only way to clear that stock is by discounting it, and there's only so far you can discount it before you ruin your brand's equity. So
the perceived value of it.
So then the only other thing you can do is throw it away. Because ultimately, if it's not moving, it's just costing you more in warehousing and taking up capacity that you don't have. So it's just this really like old, tainted. Well, it's not even that old. It came in with fast fashion, but it's tainted and it doesn't really work from a business perspective. So we decided to make everything to order. One, because it's better for the planet. We're not producing any waste. If we don't sell something, we don't make it. So that's like tick number one. Two, it's better for business because we take cash first and then we produce the goods later. So we're not having all this cash tied up in stock that we can't then go and make work for us. And three, it's better for people because we can deliver a much, much higher quality item for a lot less, because I don't have to account for holding stock, for wastage, for big end of season sales, for returns. So the only trade-off is that you've got to wait for it to be made. To wait 4 to 8 weeks for your garment to arrive. But from a consumer's perspective, we discovered pretty quickly that ultimately we don't care enough about sustainability to put our money behind it. It's a nice to have. What we truly care about, what influences the purchase decision, is price and quality. And the sustainability is like, cool, I feel good about myself now, but it's not why you bought it.
Yeah.
You buy it because it was sustainable, you buy it because you like it, and it's at a price that you thought was good value. So by operating on this model, suddenly waiting 4 to 8 weeks to save yourself hundreds of pounds is a much more enticing thing to do than to save the planet. But that might be why you come back and buy another one, because you felt good about the purchase, or why you tell your friends about it.
Yeah, it's much more pain point focused, isn't it? Because I think we've noticed that, like, you think sustainability as an angle through ads is going to be a big driver, but it just rarely ever is, and rarely ever is, something that performs well.
I think it used to be. It's now like par for the course, right? For like challenger brands, it's like
it just is a must-have, really. Every brand should have it. It's not a USP necessarily.
Yeah, it's just like it's a hygiene factor, and consumers ultimately don't care, and they're completely switched off to it. And so much greenwashing. You don't know what is actually sustainable, what's not.
Yeah.
You're told all of these horrible stats and really think, well, like, am I going to be able to make a difference? Or like, maybe that's not what I'm going to make a difference in, but I'll turn my lights off like before I leave the room. It's so easy to like put a blind eye or turn a blind eye even. It's slightly different from business to business. I think if you're selling B2B, businesses care more about that because there's a certain persona they need to uphold, and you've got like more cash to be throwing about. But particularly in a UK market where people are less affluent or have a less expendable cash because inflation and things are expensive, and cost of living crisis, which is a phrase I hate because I don't actually think it's necessarily true, but so a phrase that was brandished around a lot. But life's become a bit more difficult. You're not really thinking about sustainability as the first thing when you go and make a purchase decision.
How have you found that, like, we're going to come on to this later about it. I think it's a good segue, but how have you found that kind of like I guess you're kind of like rewiring the consumption process for fashion with that change to like made to order? How have you found like managing customers' expectations, communication? Have you been very intentional around that post-purchase? Yeah,
big time. And I think communication is the key word. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I think if you're buying something and waiting for it, as long as you know what the journey is, it doesn't really matter whether it's 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. We've not always nailed it. We've got the comms wrong before, and it's just sort of a constant learning curve, or we've been told one thing by our factory and then told our consumers that, and then the factory's been like, oh, sorry, we've got that wrong, and we have to go back and tell our consumers again. And so it's not always been perfect, but what we try and do post-purchase is, as soon as you've bought a suit, you'll then get regular updates as to who's making it, how it's made, behind-the-scenes footage from the factory, so you can follow the journey, and essentially you buy into the item that you're making a bit more, which was largely driven by sort of us going through the factory and seeing how many different pairs of hands a jacket goes through to get to the final product, and it's about 35. And so when it gives you that value perception, which is consistent across the whole fashion industry. Like, very little of it is automated. Nearly everything is still done by hand. And then when you suddenly see, like, okay, this is how much skill has gone into making this and how many people have been involved in this process, and that's where your perceived quality comes from. But If you don't know that, it's hard to get that.
I was going to say, like, it is like an artistry, right? But I feel like that's almost like with fast fashion, it's almost been washed away. That like understanding of the complexity that is behind what you wear. I think people just think it's so simple. It just turns up and it's just been like screen printed and just flipped out of a factory. Yeah. Every item's turned around in a minute or something.
Yeah, or gone through, like, a t-shirt's been made in a massive machine.
Yeah.
It hasn't.
It doesn't happen.
It might have been like, the patterns might have been cut by a machine.
Yeah.
That's probably the first biggest bit of automation that I've seen, is like laser cutting of patterns.
Yeah.
But everything else is still sewn by hand.
And the piece on communication, I think, is that exactly what you said, like that, being ahead of the customer rather than being reactive. It baffles me. I ordered a sleep mask the other day from a brand, and like I ordered it and I've been trying to get like an answer from them on where it is, and I'm like, you haven't sent me any communication after I've just spent £80 with you. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like, where is it? Nothing. Which is just crazy.
Give me an idea.
How low the bar is still there on customer experience is kind of baffling.
Yeah. And like, I do sympathise, because it's often easier said than done. It's like, well, obviously you do that, but you know, it's easy to get tripped up with it. But it's got to be a core focus for any business, really.
So, go on.
No, sorry. I was just on that communication piece. You touched on it briefly there, but like, I'd love to know how much that's evolved in terms of how much you're communicating during that timeline of when they're looking to get the suit. Because it's almost like, it's like the innovation of, a good example is like the innovation of like taxis. Really, there's nothing more that can be changed with that. But then Uber came along and introduced like the live map. So it's not, the pain point isn't necessarily how quickly the car can come. It's just being able to see exactly when it's going to be here and where the car is up to. How much did that kind of play a part in, I guess, that journey from purchasing the product to then receiving it?
Yeah, I mean, we implemented it straight away. Like before launch, we knew that was essential to making this work. And it was kind of interesting, like, they're not as engaged with like actually watching the journey as we thought they would be. Like, there's probably 20% of consumers that really love it, and that's enough to like validate doing it, because they'll become your advocates. But most people just want to know, to your point, timeline, stages, updates, rather than like who's making it and how it's made.
Yeah.
So a few people do, but lots just don't. Just like tell me, make sure I know that it's in progress and have an idea of when it's coming. And it's also difficult to give people exact timelines at times, because anything could go wrong throughout that journey. Like, a material could come in from our manufacturer with stains on it, and then it needs to be washed, and so that's going to be a 2-week delay, or there's a hold up with the embroidery and that causes a couple of days delay. And so it's quite hard to give people that process in exact definite timelines. So instead we've just made sure we've got enough contingency to like 90% of the time be able to deliver in full, and if it's late it's going to be by a week, and we can manage expectations when it comes to that. But long term, like, where I'd like to get to is for that not to be a manual process, for that, like, it's very quick and easy to tech enable that, and make sure that when a suit moves from one pair of hands to the next, it's scanned, it's updated, and you can sit there as a customer and just see exactly what's happening in real time, without having to be manually told what's going on. That's the ambition.
Yeah, that's really cool. Love that. And like, what's clear is you've remained very focused during the journey so far on this made to order model. I mean, how hard has it been to just remain within that? Have there been opportunities to break through that, where you've seen opportunities to drive further revenue or growth in the business? What does that look like?
Yeah, we've had several of those sort of opportunities, whether it's through wholesale, whether it's like we've been in conversation with probably 7 different Premiership football teams to be their suit sponsor, and trying to attach a retail deal off the back of that, which really makes it make sense. If you could buy a, Tottenham waxed overcoat, like, great, but how do you sell that in a sort of gift shop? What's the word? It's not called a gift shop.
Club shop.
Club shop.
Yeah.
How do you sell that in a club shop when you need someone there that's skilled enough to be able to explain that you'll buy it now, but you're not going to get it for 8 weeks, and creates a sense of confusion or whatever. And so, and conversely, it's been, we still get the occasional bloke that comes in, and blokes are particularly bad at doing things on time, where they're like, I should have bought this 10 weeks ago, but I've got a wedding in 2 weeks, can you sort me out? You're like, you're an idiot. And And so we do have a facility that if someone's bought a suit, we can loan them one of our samples while still waiting for theirs to be made, which is a short-term fix. But, you know, you also then get into the mindset of like, oh, well, maybe we should just hold some stock of one colour and sell that off the shelf for people that are late and have it at a higher price and whatever. But we're not quite ready to move to that model yet, for all of the reasons that we outlined before this, that you can quite quickly, for the sake of chasing revenue, completely derail the business from a cash flow perspective. And I've seen lots of businesses do that, not necessarily in fashion, but in all different angles, where they're trying to unlock new revenue streams, thinking this is going to be the one that's going to tip them over the edge. And then before you know it, you've ran before you can walk, and you've not got the focus, and you're putting lots of effort into lots of different channels and not really honing on one that's really singing for you, and just stay true to your guns. Like, give it its time to thrive before you start chasing down different revenue.
And what are those channels that are singing for you, those kind of core acquisition drivers?
For us, it's physical retail. So we drive 75% of our sales through the shop.
Interesting.
And then probably, obviously 25% online. But of the 25% that buy online, a good proportion of that's repurchase.
How has that split looked over the evolution of the brand from launch to retail launch to...
Not that dissimilar, because we'd launched into physical retail 6 months into starting.
Right, okay.
Which sort of came off the back of not really having any experience. And so doing it the way that we thought it should be done. If we got some advice from people that had fashion experience, they'd been like, what the fuck are you doing that for? Like,
Big
are you
risk,
mental?
But yeah.
But when we, actually kind of coming back to your original question of like, what was your first acquisition channel? How did you win over your first customers? We did a 2-day launch party when we launched our first collection. And we noticed that, and again, it was like largely friends and family buying into the brand at that point. We noticed that, I don't know what the proportion was, but the vast majority of our sales over that launch weekend came from people buying at the launch party, where they'd had a chance to feel it and feel the quality and touch it and try it on. And it's kind of the product, despite the fact that it's not a traditional suit, it's a casual suit. It's something that it's off the shelf sizing. You can go online, pick your size, and it will fit you. And you know, you can wear it in lots of different ways. It doesn't need to be tailored to you. Despite that, people still want to touch it, feel it, try it. Ultimately, go through the full experience, because we've realised largely what we're selling is, one, an emotion of like feeling good, looking confident, and two, the experience of coming into the shop, having a style advisor be like, you know, you should wear this colour because of your complexion. You'll look good in this size, try it on with these shoes, this is what t-shirt you should wear with it, and having that full experience. And then once you've got your sizes locked in and you want to come back and buy another one, you've got it already. You only need to be fitted once.
That's really interesting. Do you see a lot of that repeat purchase behaviour quite quickly after they've got that first suit? Are you seeing people come back 2-3 times? Yeah,
way higher than we would have expected. Because again, it's like, you know, when you're going through it, you're like, how many casual suits do you need? And in reality, because you can wear it in so many different ways, and wear the trousers independently of the jacket and dress it smartly or dress it casually, and it's very comfortable. So people just wear it all the time, and then suddenly they get fatigue of one colour and buy another 2 or 3. But our repeat purchase rate is 25% within a year, which is pretty strong for what we're selling.
Yeah,
that's cool. Really like that. And you touched on the launch party that you did there. I know you've done a few things in regards to that. I know you had your 3rd year anniversary recently as well.
We did.
Which
had our 3rd birthday.
Congratulations.
Thanks,
Brian, one of your favourite DJs, right?
Yeah. We did.
Love it.
Talk about that strategy around events. You know, how are you approaching those?
Yeah, so I think the strategy comes from like the physical retail strategy as a whole. When we've sort of been in lots of long pop-ups for a while, moved around loads of times in Spitalfields Market, just basically got a good deal where they're usually putting out 10-year leases, and to big brands, and they might take 6 months to get signed off. So rather than have an empty shop for 6 months, we just sort of slid in and covered cost. So it made physical retail accessible for the stage of business that we were at. But when we were going into it, we were like, right, okay, there's lots of dead shops filling the high street. Everyone's talking about the high street dying. particularly like as we're coming out of COVID and everyone got used to buying same day delivery on Amazon, and like, why would you go shopping? Like, the psychology behind it is, if you're going to convince someone to make the effort to come out shopping when they can do it much more easily online, that experience has to be vastly superior. So in reality, it's not the high street dying, there's just lots of dead shops filling the high street. So coming into it, we're like, okay, how do we make this more interesting? Let's make it more of a third space. Let's make it a space that you want to come and hang out with, that you've come in intentionally and you've wanted to stay in intentionally, rather than sort of like aimlessly wandering into a shop, running away from a shop floor assistant and then leaving and you don't know why you left and you don't know why you came in, and it's like bright white lights that make you feel like you're in a hospital, which is great for showing off clothes and their true colour and what it looks like, but not a massively appealing environment to be in. So like, okay, cool, let's do something a bit different. Let's have a cafe and workspace in there. And that sort of followed through into our flagship now, which we've designed in a way that upstairs feels like living room, dining room, downstairs feels more like bedroom. So you feel more at home and you're more comfortable to like want to try on a new item of clothing or get naked and put on a new suit, and you can come in, sit and have a coffee, or whoever you've gone shopping with can sit down and relax and just take a moment to chill, because usually when there's couples shopping, there's one that really wants to do it and there's one that's not that interested. So having something that sort of suits everyone, and having sport on the telly, and just like make it a nice, comfortable environment to be in as a standard. That was the initial intention. And then into what you're talking about with regards to events, design it in a way that it's sort of a multi-use space that we can use in loads of different ways, on the basis that we're spending a shed load of money on rent for this like amazing unit in Covent Garden. Most shops open at 11, shut at 7, and you're missing out on all the other hours of the day, the morning session, the evening session, where you've got this beautiful bit of retail that just sits there like not in use. So kind of driven by like from a business perspective of like, how can we sweat this asset for as much as it's worth, and make sure that if we're taking a punt on paying this rent, that we can secure some base revenue from running events that is separate. If we can make the shop wash its face from doing events, takes all the pressure off everything else that we're doing, and means that we can just like lean in and focus without having the pressure to sell stuff, which often makes you make bad decisions. So set it up in this way that you can run lots of different events, but similarly as a way to host and engage our community. People, we call it Batch Members Club. If you bought a suit, you become part of it. Create interesting reasons for people to stay engaged in the brand, to stay relevant, to come back and visit us again, and have a chance to like, you know, coming down to a salsa class, whilst that on paper doesn't give you any intention that you're going to come and buy another suit. You're then back in the shop. We've spoken to you again. We're back front of mind. And you've got that next networking event or that next wedding or mum's birthday or whatever it might be, and then it's like, oh, let us show you the new collection, and you just start to feed this ecosystem and narrative of like, one, you become part of this thing that's more than just an item of clothing. Like, what does it stand for? You become when you put it on. And two, you've got a way to keep people coming back to the shop where, you know, they're in your house and you can tell them all the things that they need to know, which you much more difficult to communicate over social, email, short attention spans. You can actually like take 5 minutes to tell people what they need to hear.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that. I think COVID's definitely helped with that, hasn't it? Just like that, you know, that desire for just even more human connection, especially as we're moving more, as you say, to like AI and online, and
big time.
You know, it's really driving the hype around that. And I think, just that model that you mentioned, just around the space being more than just a clothing store, is definitely something we're seeing more and more now. I was in Amsterdam last week and I went to the new nude project store there, and like, again, they're the same. It's like, it's just such a cool space that you want to spend time in, whether you're buying something or not. And it builds layers into that brand really, and how, you know, the emotions that you evoke from that.
Big time.
Yeah, it's interesting to go like 4 or 5 years ago when like the high street was almost going the other way. It's interesting just how that reimagination of how people are thinking about stores seems to have just almost like put a new breath of life into it. And I think it's like experiential like shopping almost.
Yeah, big time. I think also, like, if you think about it, we're really lacking third space, i.e. like someone that's not worked, someone that's not at home to go and communicate and socialise with people. Small music venues are shutting down on the daily. Pubs are in a massive decline. People are drinking less. Like, same sort of reason there's the birth of the Run Club as like a social environment, because, you know, it's free or it's low cost. It doesn't involve drinking. You can go and meet like-minded people. But in reality, like, across all of these social spaces, like, social clubs don't really exist anymore. You're not going to go down and like have 4 pints of ale and play a load of pool. Like, that, as fun as that is to do, but like, that's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
So there's this rise of these other spaces that allow for that make that strategy make sense, that people want to go and wander around and shop and just be out and about and in an environment where they're likely to meet other like-minded people that doesn't necessarily involve like getting battered or spending loads of money.
Yeah, for sure.
Or running, because lots of people hate running. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't need another Run Club, right?
Nah,
We definitely don't need any more of those. And what do you have any like key learnings that stand out to you, or insights that you know people might find valuable if they are looking to start events?
I think it's like, work out what your community want, but also don't overthink it. That's like, they're two like bit opposing bits of advice there. But I think it's like, I don't know, I whittle down what makes a successful business into 2 oversimplified things, which is survive for long enough and do cool shit. And I think you can transfer that same thing into events. It's like, keep people engaged and doing lots of different things, and like throw loads of stuff out there, test what works, but then also have an eye on what your consumers and community actually want. If you've got an existing community, if you're a brand and you know you've got a pretty good idea of what your target market is and what your actual market is, because often those two things can differ, either run an event for your actual market or run an event for your target market. Is like, and I know that's a pretty simple thing to say, but yeah, I think it's just like, be creative with it. Find brands to work with you. Don't have to do it all on your own. It's a great opportunity for brand partnerships.
Don't just launch a Run Club.
Don't just launch a Run Club.
That's like the key part of advice, right? We're seeing so many people that
Genuinely.
That's the example, like rushing it and just not thinking about it, right? Isn't it?
Just like people don't want that or need that anymore.
No,
really. It's like there's other places that are doing it better, so you don't have a point of difference. There's no point doing it.
Right.
If you really want to do a Run Club, then partner with one.
Yeah.
Like, go and take their community, introduce a whole new set of consumers to your brand.
How are you thinking about like that next stage of growth from a customer acquisition perspective? Like, retail's been a big driver. Are you thinking double down there? Are you thinking try and bring digital up? Like, how are you thinking through that in the business at the moment?
Yeah, we've got a really interesting issue in our business currently, where we're 2.2x last year revenue, but our website sessions are down 60%. So like, doesn't really correlate, right? And our brand awareness and impressions have grown significantly. So we've got this little disparity going on. So that'll be that's one of the biggest challenges that we're looking to solve. Thankfully, it's the right way around for that challenge to be. We've doubled our website sessions and halved our revenue, and probably wouldn't be sat here
loads of rubbish traffic, right?
Like pulling my hair out somewhere. So it's a good problem to have, and if we can solve it, then in theory, you know, more traffic to the website would equal both more footfall in store of people that have come across the brand and checked it out, but then want to come and see it in person, and also online conversions. So that'll be a big part of our next sort of growth strategies, to work out and fix that disparity. But then also to keep doubling down on physical retail and sweating the one asset that we've got. I think we can easily triple our revenue in that one shop alone without causing too much stress, and probably more. Mm-hmm. But like, that's sort of the goal before we then start looking. I think it's very easy to run before you can walk, and be like, when are we getting to the US, and like, what other markets can we go to, and when are we spreading around the UK? But it's like, make the most of the one asset you have got, use that as a way of perfecting your model, going through all the learnings, working out the perfect customer journey from the moment someone comes across the brand to the moment they receive their item and beyond. For us, we'll conquer that physically first, and then look at how we get as close to that same journey digitally afterwards. But it's like, that's our highest converting channel 7 out of 10 people that try on a suit go on to buy one. 75% of our revenues from the physical store. It's like, that makes sense. Okay, let's really nail that, and then we can look at how we do that online, and over time trust builds and makes it easier for people to check out online anyway.
That session drop is really interesting. I wouldn't expect that from the outside looking in, right? Your content game's really dialed in, like your brand awareness, LinkedIn, see you all the time, everywhere. So
Yeah.
to know that's not.
I don't have the answers yet. When I do, I'll tell you, because it's quite interesting.
Are you mainly? I'm assuming, like, is it mainly organic content you're pushing?
Yeah, I think
part
of that would probably be that we were running a like very small amount of paid last year, and I'm talking like $2,000 a month, like very small amount. So that would have had an impact.
Yeah.
But yeah, not haven't quite got to the bottom of it yet. But yeah, we dabbled with paid. We tried lots of different angles, from the call to action being booking for a fitting in the shop to checking out the collection and shop now online. And what we realised relatively quickly is, one, we're in probably the most competitive paid social space you can be in fashion. And two, we're not an impulse purchase. It's not like see it, like it, buy it. It's like see it, like it, think about it for 6 to 18 months and then buy it.
Yeah.
Like, that's our normal sales cycle, 6 to 18 months, which is pretty long. So running paid ads at this stage of our journey was just not far off pissing down a drain.
Yeah, makes sense.
So we decided to like stop doing that, look to like, what do we have internally, which is quite an interesting story and narrative to tell. We're challenging an industry in two ways. One, challenging the traditional suit, which is sort of fairly embedded as like a timeless thing. But we're like, is it timeless? Is it a bit outdated? Is there time for something new? And then also the way that the industry operates, in the way that everything's now like buy it, impulse, get it now. It's into a slower, more considered fashion model. So we've got that narrative to go and tell. We've got 2 founders that are pretty happy to tell that narrative as well, which I think was an important thing that we had to take stock on and be like, okay, we don't mind being in front of camera. Let's go and tell the story, because there's lots of brands that don't have that. So we can probably stand out here, and decided to hire a full-time videographer and content creator in-house, which is like quite a big move for a relatively small team. And yeah, it's working so far.
How are you approaching that in terms of like strategy on organic? Like, are you really intentional with, okay, here's what the content plan looks like for the next month? Is it more ad hoc on the spot? What does that look like?
It's a mixture of both. So we've got sort of like our core pillars of what do we need to deliver month on month, and then also leave space for ad hoc stuff. What's trending at the moment? Is there a PR stunt that we can come up with? Are there ways that we can supplement that core stuff, which gives you that recognition when someone sees your content? They're like, I know this brand, I've seen this before. You know, like, I've often takes me personally as a consumer of content, like, to see 3 or 4 reels that I think are good before or bits of content before I'll then go and follow them. So I think you have to have that level of consistency that people know once they've followed, once they've engaged, they know what they're going to be delivered on a regular basis. But then also the other side of it, which is like the sporadic, ad hoc, potentially viral moments that bring people into the funnel in the first place. So we try and leave space for both.
I want to touch on the break. It's a nice segue to the big LinkedIn moment. That's like, that's when I think I first saw you on LinkedIn, was talking about the break-in and how you use. It would be good to just dig into how you used that moment to create that kind of viral outcome for the business.
Maybe give context as well.
Yeah, I'll give some context. So this was October last year. We were midway through building this new flagship store, which was like causing us a world of pain, because we were trying to do a £500,000 fit out with a 50k budget, and the only way we could achieve that was with like brand partnerships. So we were like off our feet trying to make this happen at the same time as launching a brand refresh, hiring. Like, it was just a real melting pot. And we just launched this new collection of wool herringbone suits, which is the first time we'd gone for a significantly higher priced material. So our suits normally retail at $395. The herringbone one retails at $595. So it was like our first dabble into this more expensive fabric, and we'd only bought enough to make 10 suits as samples in the shop for people to try on. So we were quite light in terms of items in the range anyway. And I get a call at 5 a.m. Thankfully, my phone was on silent, so I didn't pick it up. And then a load of texts being like, your shop's been broken into, you need to get down to the shop like now. So I pick it up, call Julian, the co-founder, and I'm like, we've got to get down there, the shop's been broken into. And he's like, what do you mean it's been broken into? Have you got any more information? I was like, I don't, let's just get there. So we get down there and expecting, it was almost a moment of relief, because when you hear that, you're expecting someone's like actually got inside the shop and ransacked everything. All they'd ended up doing was throwing a couple of bricks through one of the windows, reaching in and just like emptying this rail that they could get to by putting their hand through the window, which happened to be all of this brand new collection, which nobody had tried on yet. So we needed it to be able to sell it. And so it was a bit of a disaster, but initial reaction was relief that it hadn't. When we got down there, I at this point had got my phone out and I was just like taking some Insta stories, really for my own personal Insta, because it's just like quite a interesting / amusing thing to share. It's like stops you from wallowing in self-pity if you've got the support of people knowing what's going on. And the reaction of both of us at the same time. We then managed to get hold of the CCTV footage. So we went to security office. They showed us the CCTV footage, which it turns out they shouldn't have done because it's illegal to do that, but managed to capture a video of the blokes stealing it. It was just 2 blokes on a line bike. So then put those things on stories. They went down really well. So I was like, fuck it, let's put it on LinkedIn. That then had its big wave of attention of people sort of like, you know, giving you support and saying, sorry, it's happened to you, etc. Then off the back of that, we got it boarded up. I did a few police reports and sat in this building site of the new shop. And I turned to Julian and I was like, I think we can do more with this. Like, people are engaged in this story at the moment. Simultaneously, an agency called 10 Days reached out and said, I think you can do more with this. So like, cool, okay, let's have a chat. And they helped us come up with this campaign called See It, Say It Suited, which is like a play on See It, Say It Sorted from TfL, of a recent shoot that we've done with one of the herringbone suits, and like photoshopped a balaclava over the top, being like, if you see these well-dressed criminals running about, like, give us a call. They had links to a billboards company, and billboard company gave us 7 days for free on their billboards. 10 Days helped us out for free because they just thought it was an interesting campaign to get behind, and put it up on the billboard the next day when I got a photo, put it on socials, and yeah, it picked up a bit of attention, which was wicked. And then we were like, okay, what's the next step? Can we push this further and come up with stupid ideas like, what if we like make a suit out of lead and put it in the middle of London and be like, we'll give you $1,000 if you can come and steal this, like, good luck to you, and we'll like make a baseball bat with Batch branding on it. And then we were like, do you know what? We're just pushing our luck a bit here. Let's just leave it there. We had enough people coming after us being like, was that all a hoax? Did you break into your own shop? I was like, what do you mean? No, obviously not.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah.
People like, but that's good because it's like conversation. Like, was it real? Was it not?
Yeah.
It gets people talking, doesn't it?
I think that comes from like last couple of years when like every fashion brand's Black Friday skit is someone breaking into the warehouse. So it's just like,
yeah,
is it another play on that? But yeah, I loved how you used it. I love the authenticity. We've talked to quite a lot of guests about like sharing the bad as well as the good, and like how much that resonates with audiences, especially in today's landscape. So I think that's such a good approach, and then I love the way you then extended the life cycle of it. I think it was really, really, really smart.
Yeah, just
really cool.
It's just a learning, isn't it? Like in every failure there's opportunity, or every negative there's a way that you can use that to your advantage. Because I think as well, as humans, we want to, when people demonstrate vulnerability, you naturally want to get behind them, don't you?
Big time. And I think like that was a big learning curve for us in terms of our content / sales strategy, in that it's like a phrase that we all know, we hear a lot, that people buy from people, which they do ultimately. And so we learned from 2 things from that moment. Like, one, we're still a disruptor challenger brand, and so like, let's go and be a disruptor challenger brand and do things that are going to garner more attention because people quite enjoy that and get behind it. and 2, let's show the good, the bad, and the ugly, and like showing the journey as long as the finished product is immaculate. So you've still got your sort of brand quality by the finished product. Showing the journey then increases engagement across both of those things. If you just show the finished product, it's kind of like, yeah, cool, whatever, I've seen it before.
Yeah.
And if you just show the journey without the finished product, then you don't have that high level of brand quality, which you sort of need, particularly when you're selling something that's a bit more expensive.
And what's been the hardest moment for you in business so far?
Oh, it's a good question, really. I think just like starting a business is often over glorified, and like, I have been on startups for a while. Like I still know, I've known this and realised this, but I think there's like an outside looking in perspective that it's like, oh, that's really cool. You run on your own schedule and you've got a reason to get out of bed every day, and you know you love what you do, which is true. But the flip side is, because you're on your own schedule, it's very, very hard to switch off ever. So you're just like constantly running at a million miles an hour. You don't get that same like, oh yes, it's the weekend type feeling that you'd get in a 9 to 5, which I'm sure you boys will know full well.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing is like forcing that balance upon yourself, putting in those markers of like, okay, laptop shut, mind switches off, or these are the times that I'm working, these are the times that I'm not, and making sure you've got a holiday booked in, and there's never a good time to take a holiday. You just got to like force it and make it happen. So yeah, like implementing the thing that we all know, which is that you need to have the rest to be able to keep pushing forwards. But it's a much easier said than done.
Yeah, you spoke a bit about burnout, didn't you, on one of your posts, and be good to know like what you've learned from that, and how you, and I know it's inevitable, as you say, in many ways, but like is there anything you've implemented since that point to avoid burnout?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like burnout's a funny one, because sometimes you know it's coming, and you know you're gonna have to put yourself in a position where the chance of you burning out are pretty high. So like for us, that was building the shop as well as doing all of these things that we needed to lay foundation wise last year, and then like getting the shop off the ground. We were doing 7 days a week like on the shop floor. I knew it was coming, but I went into it with the intention of knowing that it was coming, and like factoring into my mind that come January, like I'm probably going to be a bit fucked. Like recognize it ahead of time rather than not giving yourself that grace.
Yeah, that's good. I find it quite hard to even. I think it's quite hard to recognize when you are burnt out sometimes, because like I feel like you can like phase into it over time, and then it's like you're doing all this work and driving like no progress or impact, and like you can't see the wood from the trees. It's like that's certainly been my experience.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
And then you get out of it and you're like, fuck, I've just spent like 3 months doing nothing.
Just like getting slowly more and more anxious. The fact that you're not doing anything. Yeah, no, 100%. I think for me, I've just implemented all of the things that like we all know, and the same things that I implemented when I was going through a tough time mentally, which was like my last year of uni. And it's just the like basics of life. It's like meditate occasionally, try and eat well, exercise, like talk to friends, journal. And I don't do all of those things at the same time, but I know I've got these things that will improve like mental clarity, the tools.
Yeah.
Like I try and do at least like 3 out of 6 on a daily basis if I can, without putting the pressure on. Like if I don't do this, then like I'm gonna burn out and I'm not gonna be okay, because I think you still also need to give yourself that space to go out and get battered once in a month, or like go to a rave or dance or whatever it is. And I think if you take that away, then you just end up in this like stagnant, no release, no pressure. Sometimes you don't even know that you need to release pressure, and you get to the evening of like, you know, it's going to be a big night with mates or whatever, and you're like, I really don't want to do this. I haven't got any energy. Spent it all on work this week. Like I've got big things coming up next week because it's like the right thing to do, and ultimately it is.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's got their different releases for different things, but whatever that might be, whether that's like a full day of cycling or whatever, and it seems like the last thing you need to do right now. Like I think you need to have those releases in life.
I'm a big believer in that. Like you're never gonna have balance as a business owner, but knowing what those things are that give you that release, that escape, and you know let you, because it's that thing of like coming out and coming back in stronger. And I hate this like mentality that you see around Twitter of like, if you aren't working 15-hour days, 7 days a week, then like, what are you doing?
It's
like,
bullshit.
it's just fucking bullshit.
Nobody's
And they're
doing
usually
that.
people that are like 22 years old that have started a business like a year ago.
Yeah.
But one thing I agree with the journaling thing. That's because I almost just went on these like quarterly cycles of just getting burnt out. So it's something like I've really looked at, and I've started like journaling through ChatGPT now. So
Nice.
I've created this bot that like can track when almost I'm reaching that point based on certain signals. So like instead of like
that's elite anti-burnout behavior.
I'll send you the bot. I'll send you the bot.
please do, man.
Comment down below if you want it. But yeah, no, it's genuinely great because it will like ask me specific questions and like scores from 1 to 10, and then obviously I can still do my journaling within that. It stores all the information and then it is able to trigger it. So yeah, that or obviously just journaling.
You can have a
in
couple
notepad.
of angry therapists in your DMs.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's true though. I think it's like just like putting thoughts on paper, and it's a good way of recognizing like what you've achieved on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, or however often you journal. Because I think you guys will know when you're in it, it's quite hard to take a moment to reflect on like how much you've done, how far you've come, and then you get to the end of a cycle and you're like, well, have I even done anything?
Yeah.
And in reality, you've done a shed load, and like the amount that you almost become like desensitized to the amount that you're achieving, because that becomes the norm to just be grinding through that, because it's always like pushing to get to the next stage and the next stage and the next stage as it should be, but quite hard to reflect and recognize how much you've actually done on a daily, weekly basis sometimes.
Moving carrot, right? Just the carrot and the stick.
Yeah, no, it is though. It's very
It's
true.
just so hard. Yeah, I don't think we're very good at celebrating wins, to be honest.
No,
we
it's just on to the next, isn't it?
we just plow forward and we're like,
Yeah.
which is you've got to be intentional. I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
That maybe that can be your little takeaway.
Yeah,
Have a
definitely.
couple more pints,
Yeah.
or dinners out, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we definitely do that.
Yeah.
Couple more Greg sausage rolls for that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it's been amazing having you on today. Honestly, I think it's been so valuable. It's been good to like get into mindset as well. It's not normally something we talk much about actually on this podcast that we should talk more about. But yeah, really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you?
Insta, LinkedIn, we're batch.ldn. Same thing on the website, batchldn.com.
What street on Covent Garden?
7 Dials. So no, it's not. It's Shorts Gardens, which is just off 7 Dials.
7 Dials Market. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, we'll put all the links down below. But
Yeah, please do.
yeah, really appreciate you coming on.
Come and see me for a fitting.
I'm gonna come get a suit. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. You got 2 new customers at this. It's worth the time.
Worth the time.
Yeah. Thank you
Worth
so
the
much,
time.
man. Really
Cool.
enjoyed
If you
that.
enjoyed this episode, make sure you like, give a comment, subscribe. We're on obviously YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music. And yeah, we'll see you on the next episode.